All right, I'm back to rob you of your precious time. Thank you for indulging me. And I need a lot of your time because a couple of things I want to cover. I thought I could get away with not discussing hurricane season the last time we met. I have to go back to it because I did talk about Hurricane Irma ad nauseum, but I didn't talk about Maria. And I do want to talk about Maria and how it's affected Puerto Rico. I'm just not really an expert in any of this. I'm just telling you my opinion based on what I believe to be facts. Honestly, I haven't researched a lot of this stuff. There's just, it's just a lot of speculation on my part. But I do know that Puerto Rico has been in some, enduring some financial difficulty over the last few years. And, I've not been to Puerto Rico. I want to go. Not now, but I do want to go. But I do have a lot of friends who are Puerto Rican, and a lot of them are hard-working people. Some of them, not so much. The ones that are hard-working people usually just want to do their job and go home. They don't seem very ambitious, but they're good people. They're honest people. They pay their bills. They just try to get by from day to day. And I don't know if I can apply that to all of Puerto Rico, but for purposes of this discussion, let's just say that a lot of Puerto Ricans tend to be that way. That's the majority. So it seems like Puerto Ricans pretty much elect their government and don't really give much thought to who they're putting in power. They just want to go on about their lives. And so they haven't gotten very good government down there, because if they did, they wouldn't have the financial problems they do. And my assumption is that the government is either corrupt and or they're taking the people's money and using it for no good reason. I don't know, but they're not good shape down there. So when Maria hit, and when I started hearing the complaints from the people, I started thinking, okay, you all were not very well prepared, and I think you probably would have been better prepared had you had more responsible government. Now, I'm not trying to be controversial here. I just, I'm not trying to get any views that way. I'm just using common sense. I'm just trying to use common sense. And I just see how South Florida responded to Irma, how Texas responded to Harvey, and we just didn't see this much of a problem. Now, granted, Irma came through Puerto Rico. I believe they were hit by Irma and then hit again by Maria. And when Maria came, or rather I should say when Irma came through Florida, it had already gone through Puerto Rico and all those other places. Now, it did regain strength. But what I'm trying to say is I partially understand why things are as bad as they are. But I think if they had been a little bit better prepared, things wouldn't have gone as badly as they have. And I think they're trying to reach out to the federal government for help. And I really think it's the responsibility of the Puerto Rican government and the people to be able to take care of themselves. Now, I think we have an obligation as caring neighbors to, step up and try to do what we can for them. But again, I have always been a firm believer in helping those who help themselves. You got to help yourself first. You can't just, sit back and complain that you're not getting help. Now, I don't know what's going on down there. I'm sure they are trying to do what they can. They don't have electricity. They don't have water. They're running out of food. It's terrible. And then I had to talk about this today because during the week I got a lot of hate texts about the president and what he's doing. Because, two big things happened this past week. One was the shooting in Vegas, and I'd like to just discuss that, but I do want to address this other issue first, because President Trump went down to Puerto Rico. He didn't cancel that trip, and he went down there. And I listened to some of the things he said, of all places, unfortunately, on Facebook, but I heard it from the horse's mouth. I saw a video of him, and I listened to the things he was saying, and I didn't take issue with any of it, but I don't think it was very polished delivery. It seemed very cavalier, like, I don't know. He didn't really seem to care. And he was talking about the number of deaths in Puerto Rico were estimated to be about 17, and he was comparing that to Katrina and said thousands of people there died. I don't know if that's true, if it was in thousands, but his point is, look, you all, it could have been worse. It's not as bad as you think. You're going to be all right. I think that's the theme of his delivery, or that's his point. But of course, people are not going to interpret it that way, and people think that, oh my God, he lacks compassion, and it's so nasty. And, let me tell you something about his personality, because I think I understand it. All right. He's not a polished speaker, and I've always felt that he was blunt, and it's not good. But I understand it. I don't think there's any. Nothing is rooted in hate that he is saying, but I know the people that are opposed to him want to interpret it that way, and he gives them room to make that argument and it be believable. But it's not, I don't believe it's true. Okay? And so one thing that I could say about him is he is the kind of person that he may be president, but he's not going to necessarily behave presidential. He's not going to behave in a manner that we're accustomed to. All right, and he had been criticized quite a bit about what happened in Puerto Rico. You didn't hear that criticism when he responded to what happened in Texas or in Florida. You didn't hear that. You're hearing it in Puerto Rico now. And the same thing happened to President Bush. I mean, he was raked over the coals over his response to Katrina. And that was a president who behaved very presidential, and he rose above all that bickering and all those attacks that at times were vicious on his, reputation and what his intentions were, and it was really unfair, and a lot of that stuck. And I think our current president is trying to learn from those mistakes. They were mistakes for the president not to come out and respond to some of the allegations. I'm not saying all of them, and in this case we have a president now that feels the need to respond to everything, and some of it, he really just should let it go, But in this case, this is probably something he should respond to, and when he's attacked, he doesn't care who you are. He's going to come after you. Okay, this is a guy that hasn't been in politics all his life. All right, he has been in business, and in business, you deal with things differently. All right, and his belief is you have accusations made against you. You face those. You face your accusers, and you tell them off. That's what he does. And when people say really good things about him, he praises them. All right, and I think that's just human nature. You're going to be kinder to the people that are kind to you. All right, so if you don't want to be attacked by him, don't attack him in the first place. He's not going to let it. He's just not going to let it go. That is what we have to get used to. So people that are making these complaints about him, make sure that they're valid. Because if you're just putting things out there just to be, rude and nasty, he's going to hit you twice as hard. All right. So the other thing that I want to talk about is what happened in Las Vegas. I woke up Monday morning to hear about this shooting where 59 people are dead and hundreds have been hospitalized. And now the conversation has quickly moved to gun control. Now, when I first started recording these videos, one of the first things I talked about, if not the first thing, I believe it was the first thing I talked about, was the shooting at Pulse. All right. And but then it was more about whether it was a lover's quarrel or it was a hate crime that led to all of this. It really wasn't so much about gun control. So I'm going to try to talk about that. I really don't want to, because it really does a disservice to all the people that are mourning the loss of all these people. And that's another thing. One of the first things one of the first people I started hearing from were the conspiracy theorists. And, I just won't discount them out of hand. I wonder if these people actually have a point, if there's anything to what they're saying. But it does seem really suspicious that it's been, nearly a week now, a week tonight. There's been no names released as to who were wounded and what the fatalities were. Usually after the family is notified, then the public is notified. I don't think that's been published. And I just think it's odd that we don't know who these people are. And there has been some interviews of people that were just scared and ran from the scene, but they weren't injured. And then the people that were interviewed that were injured, they seem to have very minor to non-existing injuries. Now, I suppose you don't want to follow somebody into a hospital bed to interview them, when they got bandages all over their body, and they're nearly unconscious. But it just seems odd that, the claims that are being made is that the sound of the gunfire was coming from the speakers at the concert, and it just seems really, everything just seems, doesn't add well. And so, if this was a setup and this only happened to force this conversation about gun control, it's a really nasty trick to play on the public. People are grieving, or they're worried themselves that could happen there or it could happen here. Now, what happened at Pulse, I believe the shooter was Muslim, and that well, I don't want to get into race. The person who I think the name is Paddock, I don't remember the first name, but he supposedly died in 2013. I saw that online. Don't know if that's true. But I think it's also odd that a 66-year-old with no signs of any mental illness would all of a sudden lose his mind and go to this concert and start shooting people. The story is young. There is still a lot more to be investigated and found out, but I think it's also odd that a week later we don't even have a motive yet. But within 2 or 3 days we're already talking gun control. There are people claiming that Sandy Hook didn't really happen. So the reason why, if this is happening, if these things are being staged, The reason why it happens is because it scares people to death. And when you can scare people and you make them feel vulnerable, they'll turn to people in authority for a solution. What is the solution to be proposed? All right, we got to have an outright ban of guns. That's what they're going to say. Okay, that's what the politicians are going to say. They're going to say, okay, we've tried all these regulations. Gun control doesn't seem to be working. Guns is the problem. Let's just eliminate guns. And that's never going to happen because they have just been out there and for too long. So if you pass a law outlawing guns, then that is only going to affect law-abiding citizens. They are the only ones that are going to turn in their guns. And then everyone else is going to be, all the criminals are going to have the guns, and then the law-abiding citizens are going to be sitting ducks for these criminals. Where do these criminals go when they want to commit a crime? They go to gun-free zones. That's what happened in Pulse, Orlando. It was a bar. You're probably not allowed to bring in a gun. You got to have, in Florida, you have to have, I think, a license to carry a gun, not just own it, but I think you need an additional license to carry. So, you know, people aren't supposed to have guns. A lot of places, such as courthouses and schools and stuff like that, have become gun-free zones. So now that's where the criminal goes to commit crimes because they know no one there can defend themselves. All right. Now, I think it's kind of crazy to say that everybody should be walking around with a gun. But the shooting at the, what was it? There was a shooting earlier this year in June, and it was like a baseball practice. The Republicans were practicing for some baseball game, and only Congressman, I think Congressman Scalise, was the only one who was injured, badly injured, and he could have been killed and more people could have been injured if he didn't have a bodyguard with him there. He had protection, like Secret Service type protection, and they fought back and they shot at the shooter and killed the shooter. So if they didn't have that person there and they had to call the police and wait 5 minutes, because that's approximately what it takes. It takes like 5 minutes for the police to get to the scene. All right? So for those people that want to have guns, they should be able to have them. However, we probably could find better ways, not necessarily controlling the guns, but controlling the people that choose to have them. There's got to be some way to keep track of their state of mind. I mean, people that want licenses to own or carry guns need to be tested regularly and make sure that they're fit. All right. One thing that I also thought about, because I see no reason why, all right, and I disagree with the NRA. They feel that there should be no bans on anything. And I really think there should be a ban on these, they're calling it bump stocks. They've never talked about this, now all of a sudden they're talking about this. And there's no allegation that the shooter in Vegas used bump stocks. We don't even know what his motive is yet. Yep, but somehow we're talking about it. But my understanding is that it turns semi-automatic weapons into fully automatic weapons, which makes, people able to fire off more rounds of ammo. All right, and that's what I have a problem with. I think people should have a gun to protect themselves, with like 6 bullets. Because when you're confronted with somebody and you are in fear of your life, and it's down between you or them, it's going to be them. And all you need is 1 bullet. All right, I don't see why people need all this ammunition. They should have just enough ammunition to fill the gun up one time. And I'm talking about the guns that hold 6 bullets. I don't know anything about this stuff, so I'm sorry if I'm not speaking on it intelligently. All right, but no one person is a military defending a nation. You should just need to defend your home, and a few bullets will do. So what I was thinking earlier this week was I was thinking about prescriptions, drugs. that's heavily regulated. And every time we go to the pharmacy and we have a prescription filled, it tells us how many more refills we have left. Sometimes there's things that we buy over the counter and we have to go to the pharmacist, we have to take it to the counter, and they have to, plug in our information into their computers and make sure that we haven't bought a large supply of that. Why can't we do the same thing with gun ammunition? Are we doing the same thing? I don't know. But I don't think we are. But I think that's what we need. I think that's part of the solution. The solution is not banning guns, okay? To ban guns, you need a constitutional amendment. They should just be advocating to amend the Constitution. They're not doing that. They just keep talking about more and more regulations, like it's the guns like popping up on their own and shooting at people. It's not. It's the people holding the guns, all right? Those are the people that have to be, scrutinized to make sure that they should have the gun. And so we need to have a way to regulate how much ammunition people are buying, not just whether they can buy guns or not, but we should have a way to keep track of how much ammunition they have, and once they reach the limit, they should be cut off. And when they go back to buy more, they need to account for every bullet they've used and then get a replacement for that many number of bullets. That's it. I mean, it sounds pretty onerous, but we have to find a way, because the guns are not going to go away. All right. And we see now that in countries where guns aren't as prevalent in the United States, they're using trucks,